Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be ranking all the Fortnite seasons. This has kind of become a trend recently with lots of YouTubers making tier lists of the Fortnite seasons. I actually already made a tier list video at the end of chapter 1, so I'm not going to be doing that. I'm actually going to be ranking them from from worst season to best season. So it's going to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to try to quickly go through the reasons why I like or dislike a certain season, what I think is most memorable about it. Remember to drop a like if you enjoy this video, subscribe if you would like to see more, and comment down below your ranking of the Fortnite seasons or where you agree or disagree with me. Starting off with 12th place, the worst season in the game in my opinion is obviously going to be Season X. This is pretty much the worst on everyone's tier list or rankings. The mechs, the rift zones, there was a lot going on in this season. Some of the spots were good, but a lot of them were really extra and really annoying. Obviously, mechs were really overpowered. There was lots of junk rifts were in the game. I think airstrikes were in the game. The mechs themselves, rift zones constantly changing and making the game different, like forcing you to dance and talk. Greasy Grove, zombies and retail, prop hunt and moisty palms. There was a lot of potential for this season to actually bring back old POIs and allow people to play on them for the last time, which is what a lot of people thought. And it just turned out to be a massive disappointment. But there were some good things from this season. I really liked the Borderlands themed area, and I really liked the Gotham themed area. I also think the shotgun meta, once the combat shotgun was vaulted, was actually really good in this season because it was probably the best that the pump and the tac have been balanced amongst themselves. So it wasn't all bad, even though I do think this was the worst Fortnite season. The next season is actually going to be Season 1, and I know this is probably going to make a lot of people frustrated or angry to have this at the next to last season. But looking back on it, Season 1 was really, really rough around the edges. A lot of what you think of with Fortnite was just not the case at all in Season 1. Building was really choppy and really inconsistent because pretty much anywhere where there was already a structure, like a tree, a fence, a light post, pretty much anything, you wouldn't be able to build there. The game was really campy. The gunplay was really inconsistent because I don't believe first shot accuracy was added until late into the season, or maybe even in Season 2, so it was just all bloom fights all the time with very little building. The pump was insanely overpowered, which was fun at times, but it just kind of contributed to the campy nature of the game. There's lots of bugs all the time, but the game was really new, so it was to be expected. And the game ran at, I believe, 30 FPS on console. It might have been in Season 2 or late Season 1 where they added the option to actually get 60 FPS. But when the game initially came out, the frame rate was horrendous, and what shotgun fights you did have felt very random because of how horrible the frame rate was. It's a nice start to the game. It's very simple times, and that was nice about it. But for people who say Season 1 was the best and the game has only gotten worse since then, I feel like those people are really, really looking back at the game with nostalgia goggles and forgetting about a lot of the quality of life changes that we had come in later seasons. Next, at number 10, we're actually going to have Chapter 2 Season 1 or Season 11. This was the past Fortnite season, which brought us Chapter 2, the new map, fishing, boats, the AUG, lots of features like that. There was actually a lot of things added with this season, but there wasn't very much that came out after the fact. They dropped a new map, they dropped a new graphic style, a few new weapons, and then that was it for a very long time. The season started in October of 2019 and it ended late February of 2020. So it was one of the longest. I think it actually is the longest Fortnite season, and it actually had the least amount of updates of any Fortnite season from what I remember. And it also had no actual events. There was a Star Wars event, but this was a collab. It's actually since the Black Hole event, there hasn't been an actual Fortnite event that wasn't a collab. This upcoming Device event will be the first non-collab event of Chapter 2. So this season was very good in my opinion at the start. It was very exciting. But we as Fortnite players came to expect constant or regular updates with new content being added to the game. And while I did like the vanilla nature of this season, it got old quick. They didn't add anything to it. And the season dragged on for way too long. And that has actually been the biggest fault of the past two seasons, in my opinion, is not much to do with anything that they did wrong. It's just what they didn't do. Whereas you have Season X, it did a lot wrong. It had the mech, it had junk rifts, it had a lot of overpowered items, it had rift zones that were annoying to play around. It did a lot of things poorly. But these past 2 seasons haven't done as much poorly, but they just haven't really done much of anything. They've been much longer than other Fortnite seasons, then they've had less patches. And the next one after this is actually going to be Season 12, the current season that we're in, Chapter 2, Season 2. Same thing. They did add more with this season. They added the agency locations. They added mythic items, which I'm personally not a fan of. I did think the new loot pool, having Ghost and Shadow and having certain areas where you can get certain guns, was interesting at first. But it really just led to people getting weapons like the heavy sniper and the minigun more frequently than they would otherwise. Pretty much everybody you run into in game can have one of these weapons if they want to have them and just decide to land at one of those spots. It's not that hard to get them, so you have a lot of snipers running around, you have a lot of minigun spam running around, and both of these weapons are very frustrating to play against, along with the fact that this season has been extended so many times and delayed that it's the second longest Fortnite season. So far, we're 240 days into Chapter 2, and we've had 2 seasons. I think what made Fortnite great, and we'll get into that when we get into some more seasons, is the constant regular updates to the game. There was always something exciting to look forward to. There was always something new. And if you didn't like how the game currently was, you didn't have to wait that long until a new season to see what would be coming next. Season 10, I really disliked it, but I didn't think about quitting the game during that time because it was pretty apparent that the game was going to go back to somewhat of a more normal state in a few weeks. You know, you didn't have to struggle for that long in a season that you hated playing. Whereas the past 2 seasons have just been stagnant for so long that it's really like demotivating as a player because it just feels like it's never going to end. The next season is going to be Season 7. This actually ranks 8 on my list. And this is a season that I really disliked upon its release. But looking back on it, I initially had it in the 11th slot. I had Season 10, Season 7, Season 1, and then the Chapter 2 seasons. But looking back on it, I don't think this season was as bad as I felt it was in the moment. I really hated planes. I really hated the Infinity Blade. They got rid of the Infinity Blade somewhat early on after it came out, but I really despised planes. Like any sort of overpowered vehicle, I'm going to be like someone who dislikes it strongly. But after watching some gameplay back, I don't know if it's just because we've been stuck in Chapter 2, Season 2 for so long. It does seem somewhat fun to play. It wasn't perfect, but they did add Siphon in it. The map wasn't perfect, but there was a lot of locations that I enjoyed going to at the time. Paradise Palms, Lazy Links, Retail, Dusty Divot. I really loved Greasy, so at the time I was sad that it left. Tilted was another good spot. There was actually a decent amount of things going for this season, and after playing in 2 very stagnant seasons, I just really look back on the older seasons more fondly, the ones that had regular updates, regular content, patch notes. Imagine getting patch notes. This season was actually extended, and at the time, I believe, was the longest season. But it doesn't even come close to the amount of days that we've had in Chapter 2 Season 1 and Chapter 2 Season 2. So that's why I decided to put Season 7 higher on this list than I expected I would. Next, we have Season 5, and this is a season that I think I rated higher than most people at the time. When the season first came out, everyone hated it because they got rid of double shotgun. Whether people did double pump or pump tack, double shotgun was a staple of Fortnite up until this point. And they removed it. Epic removed double shotgun at the start of Season 5. And so people began to run SMGs way more frequently. And at times in Season 5, people were even running double SMG and just no shotgun at all. This is probably one of the most strong like spray metas we've ever had in the game. So this season was not really liked for that reason. A lot of people look back on it now more fondly than they did. But I used to have like constant arguments with people telling me that Season 5 was like horrible and the game was dying back then. But I think it's actually a decent season. I really liked the map changes. I think the map changes in Season 5 might be the best map changes we've ever had. Paradise Palms, Lazy Links, I think that was it. Those locations were incredible. I thought still 2 of my favorite locations to this day. If I was to make a top 5 list, both of them would be on there. Once again, we had regular updates. We had the cube, which was like something exciting for the community to follow for some reason. I didn't really get into the cube that much, but it was some like constant hype and constant build up for whatever the cube was going to do. And there was a lot of people like theory crafting about what they thought the cube would do. There's one more thing. Oh yeah, the rifts. Rifts were good, but they were kind of overdone in Season 5. I really appreciated rifts after Season 5 because they took them out of most locations and then left them at the edge spots. Like Paradise Palms wouldn't be that fun of a location to play out without rifts. I believe Greasy Grove kept some rifts after season 5. It was pretty extreme during the season, but after the season, rifts were something I really appreciated having in the game, and I think that it is something they could incorporate into the Chapter 2 map in some locations and actually make them more viable and more like enjoyable to drop at. The next season we have is Season 6. I kind of debated swapping Season 5 and Season 6. They're both very similar to me, but Season 6 had the ghost portals, which I liked, and it also had reduced rifts, like I was just talking about with Season 5. They reduced the amount of rifts in Season 6, so there was some on edge locations, but there wasn't as many, and they wouldn't spawn as frequently, I don't think. So people weren't flying around constantly during the season like they were in Season 5, so I thought it was a little more balanced. And then what really tipped it over the edge for me to put Season 6 above Season 5 was the fact that they buffed shotguns, and the game became less about spray. Spray was still like very prevalent in the game, but shotgun to SMG balance wasn't as out of whack in Season 6 as it was in Season 5. So that's what made me decide to rank Season 6 higher than Season 5. It did have zombies, which was just annoying, and it went on for way too long. I haven't been a fan of zombies ever since they've been in Fortnite, so that's one knock against it. The Battle Pass was good. I really liked the creepy like theme and vibe that the season had, and I believe they even converted Fatal Fields into like a haunted hayride area, which I personally thought was really cool. I really liked the horror theme. So Season 6 is actually my 6th favorite Fortnite season. Funny how that worked out. At number 5, this is getting into the top 5 Fortnite seasons. These are my personal favorite seasons. We have Season 9, and this is probably a lot higher than what a lot of people would rank it. Not a lot of people liked this season. I thought it was a lot of fun. It wasn't perfect. It certainly wasn't the most balanced version of the game, and I don't think it was the best version of the game, but I really enjoyed Season 9. Constant updates. This is actually the 3rd most longest season, but it didn't feel nearly as much of a drag as what we've had in Chapter 2 because there was constant updates. There was the 14 Days of Summer event, which brought us a new weapon, a new unvaulted weapon, and a new LTM every single day, which was really fun to play out. We had World Cup. We had the futuristic theme not a lot of people liked, but I personally really liked the slipstream because it made going for like just playing aggressive, which is how I want to play the game. It made playing aggressive lots of fun and like just something you could do constantly, and you weren't relying on RNG, like finding a launch pad, finding a rift to go. You didn't have to rely on finding these items to be able to play aggressive because there was just slipstreams all over the place. So I really liked Season 9. It wasn't perfect, like I said, but I personally had a lot of fun during this season. And I think in a year or a few months, people will actually look back on this season more fondly than what they did at the time. Next, in 4th, we have Season 8. And Season 8 is, I think, early Season 8 was the best version of the game that we ever had. The start of Season 8 had Siphon, which was taken out in like the middle of it. And that was probably one of the worst changes they ever made, removing Siphon. I think adding Siphon was one of the best changes they've ever made. And so if they kept Siphon and never took it out, Season 8 would be the top for me. There was no planes. There was no extreme nonsense going on. The game was the game. It was like OG Fortnite, but more modern. There was less extreme stuff, less like crazy stuff than you had in like Season 7. And you still had Siphon, which made playing aggressive really fun, which is, like I said, how I personally like to play. Going for high kill games was a lot of fun. I liked the pirate spots. I'm a huge fan of Lazy Links. It's one of my favorite locations, but Lazy Lagoon was also good, I thought. And this season only really got bad towards the end of the season when they took out Siphon. They added Ballers. This season also added Arena and was the start of the World Cup weeks. So it is good for that reason. I think there's a lot of good going for Season 8. But Season 8 is one of the points where like there was a fork in the road and they decided to remove Siphon. And I think that was just the wrong change. If we had a world in which they never took that out, I think Fortnite would be like a much better game for it. At 3rd, we have Season 2. This is probably going to be another controversial thing because a lot of people have this at the top of their list. And the reason why I have this below some other seasons is just because the game was still really buggy. It wasn't really modern Fortnite in the sense that you think of it now. People didn't really build fight back then. People mostly just built to make bases. And even building itself wasn't as consistent as it became with like placing through structures and like destroying like fences, light posts, trees, cars, whatever. There were still times where you couldn't build through stuff. This is when they kind of started doing weekly updates, I believe, and they weren't ready for it. pretty much every update that came out broke the game. And like I said before, building was mostly about making bases and people would just camp in them. And that slow-paced nature of the game and the lack of like aggressive building and building for build fights, which it did eventually become. Season 2 was kind of like the start of Fortnite. Season 1 is kind of like its own little thing over there. Season 2 is when Fortnite started to become Fortnite. And I think late Season 2 and the 2 seasons that followed Season 2 were probably some of the best versions of the game. Not a bad season, certainly not, but I just feel like it's slightly overrated by the community because of the way building was utilized and how people really hadn't figured out like building to the way that we know today. And some people might view that as a good thing because they didn't adapt and they didn't learn. But I think building and editing is what makes Fortnite great. And for most of Season 2, it was kind of just like a third-person shooter where people would make their own bases to camp in. It wasn't like the build fight game that we have today. In second place, I actually have Season 3, and Season 3 and Season 4 was pretty hard for me. I knew these were going to be my 2 favorite seasons for the reasons I just basically said with Season 2. Building started to go more towards build fights. People got better at building. People got better at playing aggressive. The game became less campy and more fun to play, but it hadn't gotten to the point where they were adding like extreme overpowered weapons at this point. They were getting a little more consistent with their updates. They were balancing the game a lot better. Season 3 is what added turbo building. I believe it also added the Builder Pro button layout for controller, which was a huge thing for controller players to be able to build aggressively and do these build fights like I was talking about. The main reason why I have Season 4 at number 1 instead of Season 3 is just because Season 4 was like Season 3 but more exciting. Like it took what Season 3 did, it didn't break it, it just kind of made it more exciting. You had more storyline stuff going on, you had actual map changes, where Season 3 didn't really have any map changes from what I remember. I think the only thing they added was Lucky Landing, which was a good spot, but it was at the bottom of the map. Whereas Season 4 came out, and we'll get into Season 4 is actually what I have it ranked 1. When Season 4 came out, meteors fell from the sky and permanently changed the map. It was the first time I played a game where something like that happened, where like there was an event in game and that like drastically changed how the gameplay played out. You still had all those great features like turbo building, Builder Pro. More and more people were getting comfortable building and like playing aggressive and not necessarily just camping all game like they did in the past seasons. We were getting weapon updates. I believe like the heavy shotgun came out in this season. TAC SMG got buffed. Double shotgun was still a thing, but it was a little bit more balanced. They added things like the guided missile launcher, I think the jetpacks, we had the Thanos LTM. There was just, Season 4 was, I think, peak of OG Fortnite, if that makes any sense. Like, there was a point where Fortnite started to add more and more insane items, and I feel like that was after Season 4. Season 4 is kind of like, Fortnite got to be more modernized, and people were aggressive with builds, but it hadn't quite got to, like, the insane edge where they were adding like mechs and junk rifts and whatever other overpowered item that you want to think of that they've added to the game. So that's going to be it for this video. Like I said before, we'll go down the list again. I have Season 4 at number 1, best Fortnite season. Season 3 at number 2. Season 2 at 3. 4th is Season 8. 5th is Season 9. 6th is Season 6. 7 is Season 5. 8 is Season 7. 9 is Chapter 2, Season 2. 10 is Chapter 2, Season 1. 11 is Season 1. And last place is Season X. So let me know where you guys would rank these seasons in the comment below. If you have any reasons why, or if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. I'm actually looking forward to reading comments on this one, and I will see you guys another time. Thanks for watching.